never believed those stories about people being watched in their own homes until it happened to my best friend. What started as a dream apartment in Brooklyn turned into something so disturbing that even now, 8 months later, she still can't sleep properly. This is what really happened. Amy and I have been best friends since college. We're both 26 now, both working entry-level jobs in the city, both trying to make it in New York on salaries that barely cover rent. When Amy found a one-bedroom apartment in Prospect Heights for just under $2,000 a month, she couldn't believe her luck. Places in that neighborhood usually go for way more. "It's perfect, Rach," she told me over FaceTime, giving me a virtual tour before she'd even signed the lease. "Hardwood floors, big windows, and look at this kitchen. It's got a dishwasher." I was happy for her. She'd been living with 3 roommates in a tiny place in Queens, sharing a bathroom with all of them. Her own apartment was a big step up, even if it meant stretching her budget a bit thin. The building was old, but well-maintained. 5 stories, red brick, with one of those classic New York fire escapes zigzagging down the front. Amy's apartment was on the 3rd floor, facing the street. The landlord seemed normal enough when she met him to sign the papers. A middle-aged guy named David who owned a few buildings in the area. She moved in on a Saturday, and I helped her carry boxes up the narrow stairwell. The apartment really was lovely. Bright and spacious with high ceilings and those gorgeous original wood floors. The only weird thing was the neighbors. The couple next door, apartment 3B, right across the hall from Amy's 3A, were standing in their doorway watching us the entire time we were moving stuff in. Not helping, not saying hello, just watching. "That's a lot of boxes," the man said at one point. He was tall and thin, maybe in his 40s, with dark hair that was going gray at the temples. His wife stood slightly behind him, shorter and plump, with nervous eyes that kept darting between me and Amy. "Yeah, well, it's all my stuff," Amy said with a laugh, trying to be friendly. "I'm Amy, by the way, just moving in." "We know," the woman said. Then they went back inside and closed their door. Amy and I looked at each other and shrugged it off. New York was full of odd people. You couldn't let everyone weird you out. The first week seemed fine. Amy texted me constantly about how much she loved having her own space. She could cook whenever she wanted, watch TV at full volume, walk around in her pajamas all day on weekends. It was everything she dreamed about. But then she started noticing little things. "I think someone's been in my apartment," she told me on the phone one Thursday evening. She'd been living there about 10 days. "What do you mean? Did someone break in?" "No, nothing's missing or anything. It's just, things aren't where I left them. Like, I'm sure I left my coffee mug on the counter this morning, but when I got home, it was in the sink. And my bedroom door was open when I know I closed it. I suggested maybe she was just forgetting. We all do that sometimes, especially when you're stressed with work and adjusting to a new place." Amy agreed that was probably it. But 3 days later, she called me again. This time she was properly freaked out. "Rachel, I'm not imagining this. Someone's definitely been in here." "How do you know?" "My laptop was moved. I always leave it closed on my desk, plugged in on the right side. Today it was on the left side, and it was open. And there's a dirty footprint on my bathroom floor that wasn't there this morning." "A footprint, Rachel. Someone was in here." This was serious. I told her to call the police, but she was hesitant. She'd just moved in and didn't want to cause drama with the landlord or neighbors. Plus, nothing was stolen. She was worried the police wouldn't take it seriously. Instead, she asked the landlord if he'd been in her apartment for any reason. David said no, definitely not. He seemed offended that she'd even asked. Said he never entered tenants' apartments without permission, unless there was an emergency. Amy started changing her routine. She took photos of her apartment before leaving for work each morning, documenting exactly where everything was. She wanted proof if things moved again. And they did. Every few days, something would be different. A drawer left open that she knew she'd closed. Her kitchen chairs rearranged slightly. The thermostat adjusted. Small things, but consistent enough that she knew she wasn't going mad. The worst part was the neighbors. The couple in 3B seemed to always be there when Amy left for work or came home, standing in their doorway, or sometimes just inside with the door cracked open, watching her. They never spoke anymore, just watched. "It's so creepy," Amy told me when I came over for dinner about 3 weeks after she'd moved in. "They're always there. Morning, evening, middle of the night if I get up for water. I hear their door open the second I step into the hallway." "That is weird," I admitted. "Have you tried talking to them?" "I've tried being friendly, saying good morning and stuff, but they just stare at me. The woman looks scared all the time, like she wants to say something but can't." That night, I stayed over at Amy's place. We watched movies and drank wine, and around midnight we decided to do a test. We'd both go out into the hallway to throw some rubbish down the chute, just to see if the neighbors were watching at this late hour. Sure enough, within 30 seconds of us stepping out, the door to 3B opened. The man stood there in his bathrobe, saying nothing, just watching us walk to the rubbish chute and back. His face had no expression at all. It was like looking at a mannequin. "Good night," Amy said, trying to sound normal. He didn't respond, just slowly closed his door. Back inside Amy's apartment, we both felt genuinely unsettled. This wasn't normal neighbor behavior. This was obsessive. "I'm installing a camera," Amy decided. "One of those doorbell cameras that records motion in the hallway. If someone's coming in here, I need to know." She ordered one online that night. 2-day delivery. The camera arrived on a Tuesday. Amy installed it herself that evening. It was easy, just stuck to the wall next to her door. The app on her phone would alert her whenever it detected motion and save the footage. The very first night, she caught something. At 2:47 a.m., her phone buzzed with a motion alert. She checked the app, and there on her screen was the man from 3B, standing in front of her door. Just standing there, staring at the camera. He stayed for nearly 3 minutes, not moving, then went back to his apartment. Amy was terrified. She called me crying at 3 in the morning. I told her to call the police right now, this second, but she wanted to wait and see what else the camera caught. She was worried one video of a guy standing in a hallway wouldn't be enough for the police to do anything. She was probably right, but I wish she'd called them anyway. Over the next week, the camera caught the man coming out multiple times at night, always between 2 and 4 a.m. Sometimes he just stood and stared. Other times he'd put his ear against Amy's door, like he was listening. Once, he tried her door handle. It was locked, thank God, but watching that footage made my blood run cold. But here's where it gets truly horrifying. Amy noticed that the times when things in her apartment were moved never appeared on her camera. The man would come out and stand by her door, but there was no footage of anyone actually entering her apartment. "Maybe he's coming in when you're home," I suggested. "Like, when you're in the shower or asleep." The thought made Amy feel sick. She started wedging a chair under her door handle every night. She barely slept, jumping at every sound. Then she found the vent. She was cleaning behind her sofa one Saturday afternoon when she noticed the air vent near the floor was loose. When she pulled off the grate, she found it wasn't connected to any ductwork. Instead, there was a hole in the wall just big enough for someone to crawl through, and it led directly to apartment 3B. Amy called me immediately, her voice shaking so badly I could barely understand her. I told her to get out of the apartment right now and call the police. This time, she listened. I met her at a coffee shop near her building 20 minutes later. She was white as a sheet, her hands trembling around her cup. The police had gone to her apartment and discovered what she had: a crude tunnel connecting her apartment to 3B, hidden behind the vent. But when they knocked on the door to 3B, no one answered. The landlord had to come with keys to let them in. What they found inside was beyond anything we could have imagined. The entire apartment was set up like a surveillance station. The main room was filled with monitors and recording equipment, cameras, microphones, hard drives stacked everywhere, and dozens of screens showing different angles of Amy's apartment. They'd installed tiny cameras everywhere, In the light fixtures, behind pictures on the walls, even inside her bathroom mirror. They'd been watching her every second she was home, recording everything. The police found thousands of hours of footage. Amy sleeping, Amy getting dressed, Amy in the shower, Amy having private phone conversations. Every moment of her life for the past month had been captured and saved. But the cameras weren't just in Amy's apartment. The police found footage from multiple apartments in the building. At least 6 other tenants, all young women living alone, had been under surveillance. The couple in 3B were arrested at a train station in New Jersey 2 days later, trying to flee to Canada. Their real names were Michael and Patricia Russo, and they had prior convictions for stalking and voyeurism in Pennsylvania. They'd moved to New York 3 years ago and apparently started their surveillance operation almost immediately. The landlord claimed he had no idea. He said he'd done background checks when they applied, but somehow their criminal records hadn't shown up. The police are still investigating whether David was involved or just negligent. The full truth came out during the investigation. Michael Russo wasn't just watching these women. He was selling the footage online. There are entire websites, apparently, where people pay for hidden camera videos of women in their homes. He'd been making thousands of dollars a month from this operation. His wife, Patricia, wasn't just a passive participant. She was the one who installed most of the cameras. She'd pose as a friendly neighbor, offering to help new tenants move in or offering to water their plants when they went on holiday. That's when she'd install the equipment. The police found detailed notes about each tenant's schedule, habits, and routines. The tunnel between apartments had been there for years. They'd built it themselves, slowly, carefully, removing bricks one at a time and disposing of the debris in small amounts so no one would notice. That's how Michael could enter Amy's apartment whenever he wanted, through the tunnel, not the door. That's why the camera in the hallway never caught him going inside. Amy's apartment was relatively new to their operation. They'd only installed the cameras a few days before she moved in. She'd gotten suspicious much faster than their other victims, probably because she noticed things were moved around. Some of the other women had been under surveillance for over a year without realizing. The trial was 6 weeks ago. Both Michael and Patricia got 12 years in prison. The judge said it was one of the most disturbing cases of invasion of privacy she'd ever seen. Multiple victims gave statements about how violated they felt, how they couldn't sleep anymore, how they'd had to move to different cities to feel safe again. Amy was one of them. She gave a powerful statement about how she'd thought she was finally getting her independence, her own space, her piece of the New York dream. Instead, she'd been trapped in a nightmare, watched constantly by predators who lived right across the hall. She moved out of that building the week after the arrests, broke her lease and lost her deposit, but she didn't care. She couldn't stay there another day. She's living with her parents in Connecticut now, trying to save money and recover from the trauma. I visit her as often as I can. She's getting therapy, which helps, but she's not the same Amy anymore. She covers all the vents in her parents' house. She checks every light fixture and mirror for hidden cameras. She can't sleep without multiple locks on her bedroom door. The worst part is the footage. The police seized all of it as evidence, but Michael had been uploading it to various sites for months. Even though the sites were shut down and the content removed, Amy knows it's still out there somewhere. Once something's on the internet, it never really goes away. Some nights she calls me crying, saying she feels like people are still watching her. I try to reassure her that she's safe now, that the Russos are in prison. But I understand her fear. The violation wasn't just physical, it was psychological. They'd stolen her sense of safety, her privacy, her ability to feel comfortable in her own home. The other victims are going through similar struggles. There's a support group now for everyone who was affected. 6 women, all trying to rebuild their lives after discovering they'd been watched for months or years without their knowledge. I've thought a lot about how easily this could have been prevented. If landlords did proper background checks, if buildings had better security, if we all paid more attention to red flags like neighbors who watch a bit too closely or things that are slightly off in our apartments. But mostly I think about how Amy's instinct was right from the start. She knew something was wrong. She felt it in her gut. And she gathered evidence and eventually got help, which is why the Russos are in prison now and not setting up another surveillance operation somewhere else. I'm telling this story because I want people to know that this stuff really happens. It's not paranoia to be cautious. It's not overreacting to trust your instincts when something feels wrong.